What's up everyone, it's Kelly and today I've got another swatch review for you. So today we are actually talking about two new collections from ILNP. We have their Heat Wave collection and their Summer Escape collection, both of which are part of their Studio color line, which means they are the solid cream and jelly finishes. But before we get into that, if you haven't heard of ILNP before, they are an independent nail polish brand based in the US and all of their polishes are 10 free, meaning they are free of 10 of the potentially harmful ingredients that can be found in nail polish. They're vegan, meaning they do not use any animal-derived ingredients, and they're also cruelty-free, meaning they do not test their products on animals. So like I said, we've got two new collections, the first of which is Heat Waves, so we've got 6 new cream finish polishes, and they are in a rainbow of soft but vibrant colors, not quite neon or pastel. And then we have the Sweet Escape collection, which is 4 new jelly polishes, and they're all in very bright neon jelly colors. So yeah, let me just jump into the swatches for both collections, then we can talk a little bit more about my thoughts on them, and then we can get into pricing, availability, all that good stuff. So roll the swatch footage. So as with all of my swatch review videos, I am using base coat underneath all of my swatches just to protect my natural nail and prevent any stains. Today I'm using the KB Shimmer base coat. So I'm going to start off with the Heat Wave collection. This first shade is called Daytrip, and this is actually the outlier of the collection because this one is a neon polish. So we've got this gorgeous hot pink color, and the opacity is actually really nice. It pretty much gave me 1 coat coverage, but I did end up using 2, and I thought that this one was absolutely gorgeous. I'm definitely in my pink phase right now, if you can't tell from my hair, so very excited to wear this one because I think it matches perfectly. One thing to keep in mind with this polish, as is common with neon sort of shades, is it does dry down to a sort of plasticky finish, but if you put top coat over that, it'll be nice and smooth and shiny. And then the rest of the polishes in this first collection are a little bit more muted. This one is called Cream Pop, and this one is a softer, almost pastel orange cream shade, and you could see this one was also really opaque. It also ended up giving me 2 coat coverage, and I did notice that the formula on these were slightly thicker, but they still ended up leveling out really nicely on my nails. So even if I was a little bit sloppy with application, which I admittedly was for these polishes, they ended up still looking really nice on my nail, and I actually really enjoyed this color. I think it's a little paler than I usually see with oranges, but it does feel very summery to me. Then we have the shade Honeybee, and this one is a pastel yellow cream shade, and I'm not gonna lie, I did not have high hopes for this one because yellows tend to be pretty sheer, pastels tend to be not the best formula, and let me tell you, this was definitely my favorite of both collections because I was so floored by this formula. It was so smooth and creamy, and it actually also almost gave me 1 coat coverage. So it is a lighter, almost pastel kind of color, but the formula on this made it so worth it to me. I am absolutely enamored by it, and because it's almost 1 coat, I feel like this is going to be great for nail art as well. Then we have the shade Minted, and this is where we're getting into the really pastel kind of colors. This one is a pastel mint green cream, and again, really nice opacity here, but it definitely was on the thicker side. I wasn't sure if this one was going to be as self-leveling, and I found that it was slightly less leveling than the first 3 colors, but it still ended up giving me a really nice even finish. And again, the color is super beautiful. It's just a nice staple minty color to have. Then we have the shade Oasis, and this is basically the exact same formula as Minted, but this one's in a sky blue kind of color. Again, more of a pastel vibe. It's got that like almost whiteness to it, and this was another one that had a slightly thicker formula that you do want to be slightly more careful with, but it still ended up giving me nice even coverage. It gave me perfect 2 coat opacity, and it just feels like a nice, simple, delicate color. I do love shades like this. I feel like, again, it's just a nice staple color to have in my collection, so I am pretty pleased with it. I do wish that there was a little bit more variation between Minted and Oasis just so I could do more Skittle manicures, but I still think both of them are very pretty. And then the final shade in the first collection is Melted, and this one is a more orchid toned purple, so kind of sitting somewhere between being a pink and a purple. And this one actually ended up having a slightly different formula from the rest as well, because this felt like more of a crelly sort of formula to me. Not quite a cream, but not quite quite a jelly. It ended up giving me 2-coat opacity, but it was just a little bit juicier and a little bit more sheer, but it ended up giving me 2-coat coverage, and it was very self-leveling and super, super glossy. So another gorgeous, just simple, basic kind of color. So now moving on to the Sweet Escape collection, and these ones, like I said, are the jelly formulas. So we've got 4 of them, and this first one is a little bit different from the rest. This is coconut cream, and it is actually a white jelly polish. So I would say white jellies in general have a different sort of formula than other colors, just because these tend to be a lot milkier. And I have to say, I actually really did enjoy this one. I ended up doing a lot of brush strokes to make it look even, and that's something that I tend to do with milkier formulas like this, because otherwise you might see some patchy areas. But overall, I actually did think it looked really nice in 2 coats as just kind of a soft wash of color on the nail, and then building up that opacity in the third and covering up that visible nail line a little bit more also looked really beautiful. So definitely pleased with this one. I feel like it's hard to find a good white crelly, and I think this one's going to be really nice for doing jelly sandwiches, especially with like a really colorful glitter, and just kind of muting it down with the white would be so gorgeous. Next we have the shade Sorbet, and this is another neon hot pink shade, but this time we have it in a jelly formula. And to be honest, when I applied that first coat, I wasn't too thrilled because I thought that it was going to be a little bit too sheer for my liking. I do like being able to wear colors like this in 2 coats as well as 3, just kind of depending on how intense I want the color to be. But once I applied that second coat, I actually was really pleased with it. It gave me a nice punch of color on the nail. It still showed my visible nail line through, and it didn't look patchy at all. And then when I want to amp up the color, I can go in with a third, and I think that looks super neon and bright as well. And it's definitely giving me that like 90s inflatable furniture vibe that I totally love from jellies. So this is definitely going to be a big summer wear for me. Then we have the shade Squeeze Me. This is another jelly polish, and this time we've got it in this highlighter neon yellow color. And this one I was a little nervous about because I feel like just in general, like I said, yellows are a more difficult formula, and I ended up being surprised and impressed with this one as well. I do think that this also looked good in 2 coats. I feel like in a super close-up you can sort of see a little bit of like a line where there might be slight patchiness, but I think in real life that really wasn't visible. And yellow jellies are really hard to get right in general. I think they can sometimes look like your nails are stained, but this definitely does not give that look. It just looks like a fun, bright, summery manicure. So I think they actually did an incredible job with this one. And then last but not least, we have the shade Sour Apple. This one is a neon lime green polish, and at first I actually wasn't a big fan of this one. I felt like in the first 2 coats it just didn't look great, but I ended up actually totally loving this one in the third. I feel like this one ended up having a little bit more of that milky sort of formula where it's not quite as translucent, so you can see a little bit of those lines in there, but I really love that bright jelly look where you can still see the visible nail line when it's in 3 coats on my nail. I think it's just super fun, it's super vibrant, and it's a perfect summer color, but it also feels like it's going to carry really well through into like Halloween vibes. So here are all the polishes together. The first 2 rows are the Heat Wave collection, and then the bottom row is the Sweet Escape jellies. And first things first, the formula on all of these was really amazing. I had an easy time applying all of them, and I think they were just really workable and beginner friendly. That being said, I definitely prefer the Sweet Escape collection, which is the bottom row. I think that those colors definitely gave me more of a summery fun vibe, whereas the top 2 rows, aside from the pink, I was definitely getting more of a spring vibe, or at the very least a transition spring into summer vibe. And that's probably just my own personal bias because I'm not a huge fan of pastel colors. I'm not a huge fan of spring colors in general. So take this with a grain of salt. That's just my opinion on the colors themselves. But like I said, the formulas are absolutely incredible. So if you are looking for these colors, I think that they're absolutely incredible. But yeah, for me, I'm definitely seeing myself wearing those jellies, especially the neon jellies, a lot this summer, whereas I'm not quite sure how often I'm gonna be wearing the Heat Wave polishes. Definitely the pink and possibly the orange as well, because I think that's just a fun one, but the colors, I feel like I might just save them for spring. But anyway, let's talk a little bit more about these. So those are the polishes, and overall I did enjoy them. I will say the studio color releases from ILNP are a little bit less exciting for me, just because I do tend to prefer their specialty finishes. But to be fair, I am a person who already owns a lot of cream finish polishes, and theirs do come at a very fair price point, and they are good quality formulas. So it is nice to have staple shades, especially if you are a fan of their cream formula. I do just kind of wish that the color story, especially for Heat Wave, was a little bit more vibrant, because right now they kind of feel like a transition from spring into summer, and I kind of want those summer brights. But yeah, like I said, I do appreciate them coming out with more staple shades. I think they're good quality formulas. So it's just nice to see them build up their catalog, and I really do like that they're also building up their jelly formulas, because I really enjoy those and I find myself reaching a lot for them, especially during the summertime. So now let's get into pricing and availability. All these polishes come in the usual 12 milliliter bottles. They are a little bit different from the regular ILNP line because the studio color actually comes with a wide flat brush that has a rounded tip, so application is a little bit easier. I'm not gonna lie, I do prefer this brush overall, and I do wish that they use that brush in all of their formulas, but I'm happy that they at least have it in their cream finishes. As far as pricing goes, these retail for $10 USD each on the ILNP website. Definitely check that out if you're interested. I'm gonna link it down in the description. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts. What do you think of these two collections? Which do you prefer? Are you planning on picking up either of these or both of them? And how do you feel about the color stories? Let me know in the comments. We can chat about it. If you enjoy my swatch and review videos, please hit that like button. It really helps me out. It lets me know I'm doing a good job. And if you're not already subscribed to my channel, I would really appreciate if you could subscribe. I love you all, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye. Today's fun fact question is, would you rather always hear elevator music in your head or have to narrate every part of your life out loud? See, this is a tough one because, again, I'm kind of overthinking the details. If I have elevator music in my head all the time, does that mean it's going to disrupt me listening to other music? Because that would be a deal breaker for me. And honestly, I don't know that I would mind narrating my life. Like, I think that would be kind of fine. Like if it's like Kelly walks into the room, but I guess I couldn't sneak up on people because I would be like, Kelly sneaks up on Ryan. But yeah, I wouldn't mind narrating my life. I do think that it would be annoying to hear elevator music in addition to if I'm listening to music already. So I'm gonna say no to that one, yes to narrating my own life. But I'm curious to hear your thoughts, so leave that in the comments, and I will see you all in my next video. Bye!